the surprising announcement, ladies and gentlemen, of the resignation of the finance minister herself, Chrystia Freeland, ladies and gentlemen. As reported by the Financial Post, Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland resigns from cabinet. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau offered her another role in the cabinet on Friday. As the crowds of Canada is chanting, "Ding dong, the witch is gone." Which I know that's not the exact lyrics, but considering we're on YouTube, I don't want to jinx it because they're listening, you know. So, Financial Post points out Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland announced Monday that she is resigning from their cabinet hours before she was scheduled to the table for Trudeau's government's fall economic statement. Isn't that kind of interesting? That this was the economic statement that got pushed back. People have been asking for this. It was supposed to be back in like August or September. Kept pushing back. They were about to release it, and then all of a sudden, oh, wow, I guess I'm going to resign. Coincidence. On Friday, you told me you no longer want me to serve as your finance minister and offered me another position in the cabinet, Freeland wrote in a letter addressed to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, which she shared on social media site X. Upon reflection, I have concluded that the only honest and viable path for me is to resign from cabinet. Freeland added that she and the Prime Minister have, over recent weeks, been at odds about the best path forward for Canada. Her resignation came following reports by the Globe and Mail that the Prime Minister has been courting former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney to replace her as Finance Minister. Monday's fall statement is widely expected to show the government has failed to adhere to one of the biggest fiscal guardrails Freeland had previously set, keeping the deficit under $40.1 billion for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. In her letter, Freeland highlighted the threat posed by a potential 25% tariff from the incoming Trump administration in January. We need to take that threat extremely seriously, she wrote. That means keeping our fiscal powder dry today, so we have the reserves we may need for an incoming tariff war. So, it sounds like, just with the timing of everything, that she's resigning because she doesn't want to be held responsible for turning this economy upside down and rolling it off a cliff. It seems like this is the perfect opportunity that now, since everyone's kind of putting the blame on her at this point, and, you know, more so with Trudeau, but a lot to her extent of where she's been, now she's kind of given herself this opportunity to, the Prime Minister wants to shuffle me around. I'm going to resign right before I'm supposed to address the Canadian public to tell you that our economic policy, our vision, is completely garbage. It's a disaster. So here, this is from a Substack known as the National Telegraph newsletter, wrote this little piece back in September about Mark Carney. So this is the guy that's supposed to be replacing Chrystia Freeland as the finance minister. And they wrote this article stating Mark Carney, the Liberal Party's CBDC strategy, the cloak for unintended dystopian chaos. So CBDC, that is the digital currency. That's the centralized banking digital currency. That is where everything's going to be evolved on an application. It's going to decide what finances you're allowed to transaction, where you're allowed to buy and purchase things, how you're going to operate your money, how you run your bank account. This is something that's already trying to been implemented before, but I think now with this guy ushering into being the finance minister, now we're going to be in lockstep to get that approved, which is not good for people. So, this guy says, my bank accounts and credit cards are frozen simply for holding opinions that differ from the Canadian government bureaucracy deemed unacceptable views as Justin Trudeau described them. This is extreme framework in which the fledgling Trudeau regime operates. Despite Justice Mosley's ruling, they have yet to face any financial or legal consequences. We may, however, be on the verge of witnessing the same switch and replace strategy used to quietly erase Joe Biden from the long term memory of potential Democrat voters, an effort that could be the greatest act of misdirection since Hugh Jackman's portrayal of Robert Anger in The Prestige. Concerningly, the same team of strategic management consultants behind these strategies are deeply embedded in both the Liberal Party of Canada and the U.S. Democratic Party. This phenomenon is a natural byproduct of the globalized political consulting and strategic management industries where playbooks are shared and tactics are applied across the border. That's where Klaus Schwab once said that, hey, we penetrated Justin Trudeau's cabinet. We penetrated with our own members. The parallels between the two parties' strategies are not coincidental. The network of political advisors, consultants, and lobbyists knows how to reframe public perception, how to alleviate some figures while allowing others to fade into obscurity. Well, I discussed the specific tactics in a future article as they have done from the inside. Joe Biden once touted as the Democratic Party's unifying force while they fawn over him slobbering over his ice cream, struggling to form a coherent sentence, and has been erased from existence such like Marty McFly's siblings. This will be the fate of blackface Trudeau's legacy. Enter Mark Carney, recently added to the Trudeau team as an economic advisor, a man who allegedly forgot secret documents in a taxi, or, as the historical rewrite by the legacy media and political establishment framed it, stolen from his car. Remember, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. Much like blackface Trudeau, I'll never forget calling him that unlawful freezing of our bank accounts, Mark Carney shares the identical worldview. However, unlike our current lame duck prime minister, Carney is polished, charismatic, likable, and can answer questions without relying on a memorized script. He's the quintessential smooth-talking, charismatic snake oil salesman or CBC pundit. The distinction is objectively negligible. Many people living in Western countries view the world through a Hollywood movie lens. The bad guys are easy to spot out, scary and intimidating. In reality, it's the opposite. In the real world, the nicest person in the room, the most charismatic, successful individual who everyone wants to meet and do business with, is often your narco, your mafioso, or the person funding ISIS. Just like how Barack Obama was, just like how Hillary Clinton is. Sometimes the nicest looking figures in society are really the evil ones. In reality, the bad guys are not covered in sleeve tattoos, dragging their knuckles along the motorway on a Harley Davidson. The villain, the truly evil person, is often the nicest guy in the room. Kindness, charismatic, and philanthropy act as a cloak, which is why they remain successful for so long. If you want to find someone truly dangerous, look who sits on the board of advisors at your local hospital or charity. Look at people like Galen Weston, for example. The, nice guy son of the biggest conglomeracy of grocery store chain and food distribution centers in the world, in Canada right now. He also sits on board of Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. He sits on the board. He doesn't have a medical background. He doesn't have any of that. Or look at Bill Gates. People still think of him as like this kind, loving nerd because, why would you think a guy in a sweater vest who wears glasses is some sort of nefarious prick? Well, he is. If you look at the story behind Bill Gates, if you look behind that identity, he is the most sinister person in that room. Now, so it goes on to say, now I'm saying Mark Carney. Now, I'm not saying Mark Carney is a bad person, but he is philosophically dangerous. Very dangerous to those of us who, as objectives, are concerned about increasing government encroachment and authoritarian technocratic control over our lives. Carney has held prominent positions at both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. He is a Keynesian economist, the polar opposite of Javier Milei, who managed to balance Argentina's budget in just 3 months, a budget once deemed impossible to balance. Now, they add that in there, but as you see in Argentina, in order for them to balance the budget, because they didn't actually go after the political corruption that caused the budget to turn into a deficit, they didn't go after that corruption. They went after the working class people, which is why in Argentina, poverty has skyrocketed in that country. A model that also Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are looking towards. So that's a bit dangerous on that front. Carney's background and controversial relationships make him the perfect figure to push Canadians into eroding central bank digital currency, something Canadians overwhelmingly oppose, according to the government's own polling. While I've been long maintained that a CBDC is highly unlikely, Carney will be the snake oil salesman who convinces liberals to adopt it into their policy guide for a future liberal leader. Should he fail in his bid for public office, his Bank of Canada credentials give him a false sense of credibility, enabling him to usher in this potentially doomsday scenario. So, this is the guy that they want to bring in to replace Chrystia Freeland. And this is the guy that has connections not only to the Bank of Canada, but also has connections to nefarious NGOs, nefarious globalist tyrants that are implementing these policies. They want a digitalized currency. Why? Because they could take control of citizens individually and their finances. Just like they were trying to do that with the Freedom Convoy. They were trying to pressure people to freeze their bank accounts. And they hope that freezing their finances will take control over them and socially dictate them to fall into line. And that was the big reveal that what Chrystia Freeland was doing. But now if they get this guy in, they think that he's more charismatic, comparable to Freeland, that he's able to do it more quickly and smoothly. So this guy, this is from The Conversation, says Canadians have serious trust issues when it comes to a central bank digital currency. I think people already don't have a serious trust and have serious trust issues with their banking institutions already. Considering the fact that like TD, CIBC, RBC, like the big bank institutions, Scotiabank, are already implementing these policies. We haven't even gotten to a digital currency point where it's been implemented in government. Like there's no law set in state. But these big banks are already rolling it out. These big giant banks that are too big to fail, as they would say, have already rolled out the potential for a digital currency and the accessibility for politicians, for companies and other contributors to play into your finances, meaning that they can freeze your bank account. They can deny you access to your funds. They can dictate over your financial freedom. So, in hindsight, meet the old boss, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And there you go. Look at that. Freeland and Mark Carney. Look at that. Both at the World Economic Forum. So, there's really not much difference between the two of them. There's really not much difference. And the only reason that she's stepping down and shuffling around is because people are realizing that Chrystia Freeland is not this charismatic figure. She's a bit of a nutcase. You could see her on camera. She's doing the shakes and wiggles and going crazy like, ah. And people could see right through that. They could see how just unappealing she is, just how disconnected she is. So they hope that this guy, Mark Carney, because being this charismatic, banker, he's going to swindle these people so easily with a perfect smile. But really, it's not going to change the perception of the finance minister. It's not going to be beneficial for Canadians. It's the exact same agenda. It's just a different brand. It's just a rebranding of the finance minister's position. It's no longer the kooky Chrystia Freeland. It's now the malice Mark Carney. And brace yourself, folks, because if this guy gets placed in to being the finance minister, they're also expecting him to possibly run as the top leader of the Liberal Party, which potentially could run for prime minister. That's what some people are saying. I'm not reporting on that. That's what just people are saying. But if that's the case, brace yourself, because this guy seems like a lot of trouble. This seems like a persona non grata to serve the globalist agenda and not serve the interests of the Canadian public.